Welcome to ESRAG Podcast, Climate Conversations. You go to destination for engaging discussions on climate action and the sustainability within the Rotary community and ESRAG community. I'm your host, as usual, Ilya Admiral. And as per usual, I have a lovely co-host named Felix. Hi, Felix.
Hi, it's been quite a while. There's never lack of an exciting moment other than to hear what's happening around the world, and also to hear what the experts have to say, especially with climate change and the climate action that is so much needed. As we gear up for COP28, much needs to be said, much needs to be talked about. So it's a joy to be able to join you tonight, and thank you for the few minutes that you'll give unto us, so at least we can have a conversation on things that matter to each and every one of us.
Positive introduction, Felix. I wish I was that positive when I discussed climate. Today, I have a special guest for you. It's Clari Nolet, and she is very involved in circular economy projects within Rotary and ESRAG. One of her projects is a lithium-ion recycling collaboration with Redwood Industries and Walmart in the United States. So I hope you will have plenty of questions for her later.
There's no doubt about it that the guests tonight to be of great interest to you. Everybody uses a mobile phone. We all use a cell phone. The penetration of the mobile phone is close to almost 100% across the world. Definitely, you want to listen to what she has to say. And the reason I say this is because almost every single person changes their phone at least twice or three times, even some five times in 1 year. What happens to the substance that are contained in the cell phone? So it's something that we want to listen to because we all have a role to play when it comes to taking care of the environment.
You're absolutely right. Well, before we get into our guest and before we go into a deeper conversation about lithium batteries, I'd like to discuss something that you've been reading recently. So, have you seen anything, any climate information, climate news that you've been reading recently, Felix?
Of interest, yes, on my end. Of interest is going to be on November 13th. The government of Kenya has declared November 13th to be a public holiday, which means no going to work if you're employed. And the reason behind that is so that everybody can be able to plant a tree or two. A public holiday just to plant a tree or two. That's how critical the whole subject is until a government sets up a public holiday for you not to go to work for the sake of planting a tree.
Just a tree.
Well, the plan is at least every single person should be able to plant at least 3 trees. That's the goal. The government is shooting at least on that particular day, November 13th, to plant 100 million trees. And the population of Kenya is about 50 million people. So all we need is at least everybody to be able to plant 2 trees to hit the target. But the end goal is by the year 2030, the government of Kenya is shooting for 15 billion trees to be planted. So this is just the beginning of it as a national movement in such a way that everybody basically buys into the program, into the project.
Are you going to plant some trees or have you planted some trees recently, Felix?
The last time I planted trees, I planted 4,000 trees. This was the year 2022. And so this year, I'm projecting to be able to do at least 3 times that, which is possible. It's November. So far, so good. My traction is not bad at all. So I'm projecting at least by the end of this year, I should have at least 3 times what I did last year, which is about 12,000 trees. So yes, I'm on target.
Excellent. I like that you're on target. I mean, if everybody will do as much as you do, then we will be all on target, I think.
And the world will be a better place. We'll have enough oxygen, at least, to make sure that we're taking care of the environment.
Taking care of the environment. Well, speaking about oxygen, there's been a couple of things about the plankton, and plankton is actually also producing a lot of oxygen. The news I've been reading is that microplastic eating plankton may be worsening crisis in the ocean, say scientists. Rotifiers could be accelerating risk by splitting particles into thousands of potentially more dangerous nanoplastics. So imagine plankton is digesting the plastic, or it's very small plastic, it's very kind of almost nanoplastic, it's microplastic, and it breaks it down into nanoplastic. And then it's just stays there on the bottom of the oceans. And we need plankton for the oxygen in the oceans. And that also produces oxygen that we breathe. And in the way, we'll breathe even more nano and microplastic if this continues. Just kind of
It's
scary.
tricky.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's more like a double-edged sword. On one side, it kind of takes care of a problem. On the other end, guess what? It's like it's worsening it because at the end of the day, we'll have too much of micros into our lungs, which also is another hazard altogether.
I think it's on to us to find solutions and already stop using and producing as much plastic as we are at this moment and start using plastic that is made of bamboo or any other sustainable material.
So pretty much there's no running away from getting rid of plastics from Earth, right? Seems to be the case. Because no matter what happens when it gets into micro, then that's already another hazard we're dealing with, which means we have to breathe it in. The only way is just to make sure we get rid of plastics. There's no other way around it.
There's no other way around, indeed. Well, hopefully, one of our guests in the future will have a solution for this as well.
It's my hope. It's my only hope that it will happen soon.
I think it's time to move on to our guest. What do you think, Felix?
Most definitely. I want to listen to what she has to say. As I mentioned, the subject is of interest because everybody is in touch with what she's about to talk about. So it's just an issue of let's hear what she has to say as a solution to the problem that we have. It's tricky, and the reason I say it's tricky, it's because everybody also has to use a cell phone. Well, I mean, there's no other way we can communicate, and a cell phone has to use a component that she'll talk about in depth and what can be done about it.
Okay, guys, it's time for our guest of this week. And our guest this week is Clari Nolet. Clari Nolet pioneered ESRAG two major circular economy projects, both involving partnerships beyond Rotary. First one is Freon initiative, through which clubs organize community drives to collect all stocks of Freon to deliver to a facility where it could permanently be destroyed and generate carbon offset credits. The second partnership is the Lithium-ion recycling collaboration with Redwood Industries, which is now involves over 50 clubs. With an MBA in finance, she has served as president of board of Altos Rotary Club Endowment in California, and as marketing director of club largest fundraiser for the 3 years. She will work to encourage the Rotary Foundation and clubs to their investment to benefit the environment. Welcome, Clary, to our podcast.
Hi, good morning.
Well, we're gonna straight to it. I think we'll start with Felix asking you a couple questions. Felix, what do you have for us?
Nice to have you on board, Clary.
Thanks.
To start us off, my first question for you is, can you provide some insights into your journey to becoming a member of Rotary?
And I guess also into how you became an ESRAG member.
So, for many years, I was in the semiconductor industry and I was constantly traveling. So, I really couldn't even think about something like Rotary, where at that time you were required to attend a weekly meeting. It turned out I ended up switching jobs and I wasn't traveling any longer. My daughter was getting older, so she was at the end of high school and I wasn't doing all of her athletics, which took up a lot of time. And I happened to be at the eye doctor. And I remembered getting a letter recently from my eye doctor, who was also the president of the local Rotary Club, thanking me for a purchase at the art show, which is our club's biggest fundraiser. And I said, "Oh, I thought that was such a nice touch. I thought it was great that I got that letter, nice follow up. And tell me more about Rotary." He told me a little bit, but he said, "Come to a meeting." That was it. I joined. And then as far as ESRAG goes, I was a part of another Rotary action group. And with another person, we were very, very interested in working with them. But that one action group, I think there was some conflict of interest. And they really weren't interested in having people who had a really big vision and wanted to revamp their website and do a bunch of different things. So we both left that board, and I heard more about the environmental sustainability Rotary Action Group. And I thought, this is a place that I care about and something that I want to find out about. And when I found out about it, I saw that they were going to have a booth and people were going to be there. So I actually just booked a plane and went to the Rotary International Conference in Atlanta and talked to people on ESRAG. And I decided it was definitely for me. And right from the start, I started thinking about a project I wanted to be involved in. I think the issue that I have, especially on environmental, is that so many of the projects are very local, and ESRAG is a great umbrella for also doing projects that are scalable and projects that can be much bigger, because there's sort of an emphasis now to partnering with organizations outside of Rotary. The problems facing the environment are so huge. Oftentimes a global grant isn't going to touch the problem. And so I think we have to look at this differently and partner with big organizations that could use Rotary's help to address a problem. And that's really where I'm focusing my attention now, which is on the lithium-ion battery recycling program.
It's quite a mouthful, to be honest. We have more questions for you as we proceed, especially on the two major projects, that's the Freon and the lithium. But I'd like to ask if Admiral has a question for you before we delve into each of those recycling aspects of the projects. Admiral, do you have a question before I ask pertaining to the projects?
I know you're very intrigued in projects, Felix, as you are very involved. But I also know that you are now involved in ESRAG board. Could you go in the circumstances that led you to take on this role or to be in this role?
I think that I was interested, and I was interested more. I'm more interested in sort of the project side because I'm a doer. I'm not a process and writing down bylaws and that kind of person. There are people who are very good at it. I'm not one of them. I became very involved very quickly with the first project I was on the Freon, and they just saw how that was really taking off, and they invited me to be on the board. And then they actually asked me to lead ESRAG, and I had to say no. I was not able to do that. I can't take that on. And again, that's not my forte. My forte is action and getting stuff done, and working on a project and how that can affect other projects is really the thing that I'm most passionate about.
I feel you. I'm also, I don't want to sit in meetings just discussing things. I like to go to a meeting and actually set up a plan and do an action rather than just have meeting, another meeting and a board meeting. Because it becomes endless, no?
Yeah, I think like a lot of people, I feel a lot of pressure on the environment. This is not something that we can take endless time to try and figure out. I really wanted to dig in and see if I could make a difference or an impact in at least one area.
Speaking of impact, Felix, I give the word to you.
Going down, or rather getting into the project, could you provide us with an in-depth understanding of the project scope and objectives? What precisely does the lithium battery project entail? Additionally, I'm curious about the factors or motivations that propel you to undertake this massive initiative.
Well, it turns out one of the things that I started to do was I was working with a company in Canada that another board member introduced me to. And they worked with carbon credits, they worked with certifying projects with carbon credits. I met with them a number of times, and I wanted to create an outline that would be for any group, any club thinking of starting a project to read this and look at it before they started, because if they sort of followed the ideas in it, then it had a chance of being a project that had a lot of impact on it instead of, some small local project. And it was, encouraging people to think bigger and scalable. That was the other thing, is that, with Rotary and all the clubs, districts, and everything like that, we have to think about, one of our big advantages is that if we get clubs involved, we can scale, and we have boots on the ground, which is, other groups that they're looking for that. And we're all very deeply involved in our communities. So that's important. I got that. And then it wasn't really going anywhere. And, it was maybe more technical than people wanted to look at. And I read an article I think, in our local newspaper or online by Sally Benson. And Sally Benson is a professor at Stanford University, and Stanford's very close to us. And I thought, I'm going to email her and see if maybe she would like to meet, and I can talk to her about, what are things we can do to work with Stanford to come up with some sort of a scalable project that we could take to Rotary clubs. And so she said that was a great idea. And so we met, and also one of her grad students, and we started talking, and she was pretty unfamiliar with Rotary. So I had to sort of explain to her what Rotary is, how it's organized. And she said, an issue is lithium-ion batteries. And Stanford is actually working with a company in Carson City, Nevada called Redwood Materials. And they recycle lithium-ion batteries. And it was started by J.B. Staubel, the person that co-founded Tesla. And when he was there, he sort of envisioned the future with these electric vehicles, that the batteries were going to have to be recycled, because the precious metals in these batteries are basically from countries outside the United States, not always favorable to us, some with severe inhumane and child labor actions. And frankly, most of the processing is controlled by China, who's really taken a lead in electricity and electric vehicles. Plus, not only that, when it's mined in all these places, it has to travel like 50,000 miles to get to the places where they're making the batteries. Sally put me in touch with Redwood Materials, and we talked it over, and we sort of came up with this idea. Let's have a pilot. We'll have 3 clubs: my club, Rotary Club of Los Altos. I picked, and they were interested, Rotary Club of Cupertino and the Rotary Club of San Jose. Cupertino and San Jose are bigger towns than my town. And we decided to create a project and build all the marketing materials and everything to educate our community about why recycling lithium-ion batteries is so important. And what I thought at the time is, let's create these materials with the thought that we'll be creating a turnkey project package. So when we're done and these are all refined, we can put all this stuff in a package that any Rotary club in the US, because it's pretty US based right now, could download and hold their own project. And you don't have to start from the beginning. I think one of the hardest things with projects is getting started. I mean, this pilot took us almost 2 years to prepare for. So held the recycling event leading up to it. We put ads in the paper, we put posters all over downtown, we put all announcements in all of the schools, we had notices on all the soccer fields, we wrote articles for our local newspaper. We did everything we could possibly think of to get the word out about recycling these batteries, and that we were going to be at a local school. Cupertino was at, I think, a community center, and San Jose was at schools, to get people to come. And, this was still sort of during COVID. So we had a drive-through event. So it was contactless. They just drove through, we pick up the batteries, and they keep going. And the first event was incredibly successful. We were shocked at how many barrels, 55-gallon barrels, we collected of these lithium-ion batteries. Now, it was clear to me that people don't know what lithium-ion batteries are, because we got a lot of stuff that wasn't anything to do with lithium-ion batteries. So we had to educate the people working the event and educate the people dropping the stuff off. So even though we had frequently asked questions and all kinds of stuff about what can be recycled, the joke is we got a weed whacker without the battery, and all we wanted was the battery. So things like that people, I think, is, they want to clean out the junk that they have, and they saw this as an opportunity. But clearly we had more work to do in terms of educating people about what lithium-ion batteries are. As an interesting aside, when you get on an airplane these days, the person taking your ticket says, when you're checking in, says, "Do you have any lithium-ion batteries in your suitcase?" And of course, everyone says no, but I guarantee you, half the people don't even, or more than half, don't even know what a lithium-ion battery is. I know that there was a lot of education to do. So for the next year, we had a lot of events. I think the first year we had 23 events in different parts of the country. We did all kinds of Zoom calls, everything, telling Rotary clubs what this was. But we also had to completely rebuild our website so that it wasn't just for the pilot, it was bigger. And we had to work on getting all of the materials in a way that could be used by other clubs. So, for example, all the posters we put into an app that allows Rotary clubs to customize it for their date, their location, and their Rotary club. So everything was fill-in for them to complete it and use it. There was a timeline of things that they should follow. There was safety video. There was a lot that we put into that. And that took about a year to get that up and running. So we didn't do as many events that second year, which was this year, because we only got the website finished maybe in April. And we really couldn't scale until that website was done. And we've gone all across the United States. I think we've been in at least 15 states, and we're building and trying to get the word out. But if we get Rotary clubs all over the U.S. to start with, to raise the education about why you need to recycle lithium-ion batteries, and there are a few main reasons. One, safety issue. If you throw away a lithium-ion battery and it goes into a landfill, with the way they move the trash around in a landfill is with a fork truck. And if the fork truck hits something with the lithium-ion battery, and it can explode and cause a fire. And major fires in landfills and deaths have been caused by lithium-ion batteries. So they are prohibited from going in the trash, but it's impossible to monitor this. And because of the lack of awareness, people get frustrated because they don't know where to take them and they throw them away. The second is, a U.S. supply chain security issue, in that the U.S. does not own these metals or the mines to these metals or the processing. And if we really want to scale the electric grid and electric vehicles, we need to have access to these metals. We don't have all these mines in the United States, and we don't have enough that we can scale to the way we want to for the electric and electric vehicles. One of the things to help this, and the third thing, is to reduce mining, pollution, and reduce child labor, is that if we can recycle these batteries, we don't have to be as reliant on foreign sources for the metals. And Redwood is the only recycling company in the United States right now that recycles consumer batteries. Much of the capacity around the world for recycling lithium-ion batteries is gearing up for recycling electric vehicle batteries. So, that the first ones aren't coming off the line until, maybe this year, next year, whatever. So there's not a huge amount of those, but there's billions of cell phones and laptops and electric toothbrushes and many, many devices that have lithium-ion batteries. J.B. Straubel's famous for his quote that the largest lithium mine in the world is probably in the junk drawers of America. And from that, we've developed all of this information and have gone across the United States, and we have many clubs that are interested in doing this and spreading the word. And right now, another opportunity came up, which was amazing. Through President Biden's infrastructure bill, the Department of Energy got a bunch of money to give out grants. And there is a specific grant that Redwood and ESRAG have applied for together, and it is to make awareness of recycling batteries and to increase the recycling rate of the batteries. And it said batteries. You could have picked any one, but we picked lithium-ion batteries. In August, we submitted a concept paper, a 3-page concept paper. The Department of Energy reviews that, and if they think it's worthy, then they give you permission to go ahead and apply. And we got permission to go ahead and apply. And so we're in the big throes of applying for it, and we're applying for a $5 million grant that will go $2.5 million to ESRAG, $2.5 million to Redwood Materials. And we're going to try and take this, really try to supercharge this. And there's a lot we need to learn. The biggest issue, which I think is going to be applicable to any problem, is how do you reach people these days? They have so many things coming at them and so many sources. How do you get to them where they'll listen and pay attention? And then how do you motivate them to take action? And then how do you make it super easy for them to take action? And these are the 3 things that we're trying to unlock in this grant. And if we unlock how to do these things, what's great is we can apply to any problem. And with Rotary, we could scale. So it's very interesting. Stanford's participating in this, and they're going to do some research and help us with messaging and a lot of research. We also need to understand, how is recycling happening in all the 50 states right now? and how can we partner or work with them, basically to understand our ecosystem, which we really don't know fully. That where I live in California, each town has a different company that takes care of their waste disposal. So it's kind of convoluted, and there's no uniform, and there's a lot of third party people in this companies, and we need to really understand this to understand how we can operate. But I'm thrilled that it's a great opportunity, and right now I'm asking, and I'm getting many, many letters of endorsement from district governors to say they're going to support our grant, because we want to submit. We submit November 27th for this grant, and I would like as many district governors to endorse this, so that the Department of Energy will take it seriously. That, look, we've really got Rotary behind this, and then with Rotary with Redwood Materials, we can really do something. And the fact that we've already been doing this for 2 years, it's not like we're starting from scratch. So it's a long story, but all those elements are needed to understand how we started and where we are today.
That is quite amazing. I do have a number of questions before Admiral comes in. The uptake of lithium-ion batteries, was it far much easier and better than the Freon recycling project? Which one had a bigger win, a bigger uptake between the two?
Definitely the lithium-ion battery. The Freon one, we had great hopes for it, but we ran into issues that we couldn't foresee when we went into it. We started it during COVID. We found out many of the people who have Freon, to them, they're not very environmental, and they want to get paid a lot of money for their Freon. The handling, sending money to the Rotary clubs and giving these people money and everything Rotary clubs didn't like it. They didn't want to be in the middle of the money. And this was very small stuff. And so really the big people that had Freon were maybe large grocery store chains, commercial buildings, a lot of that. And that's really hard to get to, and really hard to work with. And we had someone who was very, very knowledgeable and enmeshed in the whole refrigeration industry. And he was helping us trying to get large donations from all of these big sources. And then we would have it destroyed, and it would have earned money for ESRAG. All well intended, all great. But the problem is it's just very hard to reach. And the way we would reach the big stuff really wasn't involving local Rotary clubs. And the guy that was helping us really kind of disappeared. So we realized that just didn't have a future. But, you live and learn from these projects. And, we made mistakes, and we learned a lot from that. And then that preceded the lithium ion. But the lithium ion is such an easy message. Everybody has batteries. Rotary is very involved in their communities. It's an easy message to sell. It's different, though, to make sure people know what a lithium-ion battery is. And obviously, we're working on how to do that, to really inform, so that we've had 3 in our club, 3 recycling events. In this third one, we just got really high quality batteries. So we feel from the first one, where we're getting all kinds of miscellaneous stuff, to the third one we held, we made a huge improvement on the quality of the batteries that we got, and they were lithium ion.
Thank you so much. I know I'm going to take a few minutes away from Admiral, because the reason I say so is because there's a center called Waste Center, that is waste management for electronics and electrical, right here in Kenya. And they've been able to gather over 11,800 tons of electronic waste, of which majority of it has also been in the lithium aspect. And definitely I'd love to be able to connect you with them, because they do work with the Rotary clubs in Kenya. And just also to go back to the grant that is being provided, I'm assuming this basically will cover much of, or rather will focus on the US advocacy program, and then maybe ESRAG can be able to scale it to other continents and countries, correct?
The devil is always in the details. And I think I live in a country that's terrible with waste, and recycling isn't great. And if we can make a huge dent here and be successful, then we can branch out from here and take it to other places and build on our success. The problem is that lithium-ion batteries cannot go in airplanes, and so, because of fire hazard. So there has to either be a local recycling plant or a place that's not so expensive to ship the batteries to be recycled. So they're building capacity around the world for lithium-ion recycling. And as I said, not all of it will take consumer batteries. So we're working, Redwood Materials is building a facility in South Carolina, and I believe they're looking at another one outside the United States. I don't believe it will be in Africa, but I'm in talks with people in India. We hope to expand to Canada and Mexico. And Australia does have a limited amount of lithium-ion recycling, and the goal is to dig into that further. But this is such a big project in of itself, just tackling the US. I think we need to get it right here and really figure it out. And then aside, I'm hoping to talk to other Rotary clubs in other parts of the world and ask them to help with the research to find out, is there anybody doing lithium-ion battery recycling? Where are they? And what's their capacity? And can they take consumer batteries? Because just finding out where it can be recycled will help us decide where we should engage next. Because if there's already some infrastructure for doing it, it's low-hanging fruit compared to trying to start over. And then over time, then maybe some of these other countries can either have building their own recycling, or we can have it close enough that shipping is easy.
Thank you. I'll let you be able to ask a few questions because I have too many, and I'd
you
love
can
to
go
at
on.
least.
You can go on, Felix. Go on. I think you can ask another.
Yes. In fact, this will be an invite. I want to extend an invite because we Center is conducting the third annual Electronic Waste Conference, which is going to be on November 29. And so what I'll do is I'll shoot you an email as an introduction to the CEO of the organization itself, and
Sure.
at least take part in it and see what they've been able to do, and then see if there are any points of collaboration that are possible.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So now, Admiral, I'll let you go ahead.
No. I think if you have more questions, Felix, it's fine. Go on.
I should just proceed, eh? Right.
Yeah.
Okay. You've talked about the quick uptake is in lithium-ion batteries, and you've mentioned about partnering with ESRAG, especially on the grant. You've mentioned also that Freon, the difficulties that were being experienced. And you talked about the main challenge being the messaging. How do you get the message out? What form of advocacy pretty much would be more effective in getting an uptake, or rather to get a buy-in? Just something else I wanted to mention is, would you consider, like, for example, supermarkets like Walmart, such kind of outlets? Because what I saw is that in Kenya, our Center was able to partner, especially with outlets. And the reason they were able to do so is because of the visibility. Everybody goes to a supermarket, so it's easier to catch them. It's easier to get them, especially if you have a container box where they can be able to kind of drop in their mobile phones or any form of ion batteries that they do have. Would you see this as one of the avenues that is possible in terms of advancing the campaign in the US?
Well, that is an absolutely fabulous question, and I have a pretty good answer. So we ran our first event with Walmart in January in Bentonville, Arkansas. But I have to say, Walmart kind of moves with glacial speed. So the goal is it's not scalable for just rely on Rotary clubs to hold events. So our goal is really, the phases are to get the word out, get some recycling events going, let people know about it. But the goal is, by the end, we need to have it so convenient and so easy for somebody to drop off a lithium-ion battery. That means we would like to have drugstores, grocery stores, very easy to access places that people are at all the time. That's the only way this is going to work, because we know that we're asking people to change habits. And if we get them to care and they're wanting to change that habit, if they run into obstacles and it's difficult for them, they're not going to do it. So the bottom line is we are really working hard to make sure that we can make it as simple as possible. And Redwood is also working on some maybe special containers and things that we can do it. There's just the container, like when does it get full? When do we bring it back? Making sure it can't be broken into. There's a lot of things that are going to go into how we do that. Right now, we either have collection in 55-gallon barrels, or we have what are called Obexian boxes. And these boxes can hold up to 30 pounds of batteries. And once the battery box is full, you weigh it, and then we get a label from Redwood Materials, and they have an agreement. I don't know which major shipper it's with, but they have someone for ground transportation for then these batteries to go back to Redwood Materials at no cost to the people that collect them. So your thinking is right on, and that's absolutely where we want to get to.
You mentioned that some of the dangers, or rather the most visible danger, is that lithium it's easy to ignite, and that's why planes are not letting people with lithium-ion batteries to be able to board planes. Could you also illuminate the importance of establishing secure disposal methods for them? Other than the environmental implications, are there any other health implications attached to it?
No, not really. I mean, you've got to remember that most of the lithium-ion batteries are inside something, and Redwood will take the whole thing. So if somebody did bring a weed whacker, hopefully with the battery, they would take that whole thing, and they responsibly recycle the rest. And then to handle the batteries is perfectly safe. We have anti-static bags that each, if it's an individual battery, goes into, and then it goes into the container. So there's no really hazards for handling it. We put the batteries, in the container or into the barrel, and then Redwood handles the transportation back. There really isn't any. And then we have a safety video that we require everybody to watch that's working one of these events, to see that, you put it in an anti-static bag and then you put it into the barrel. Most of our volunteers that help us run these events are either Rotaract, Interact, or, local high school green teams or honor societies students that need to get hours. But the thrill is, for most people, is to see all these young people involved. They're just super happy. The most successful recycling event we had was in Maryland, where the interactors were totally involved and ran their entire social media campaign. And they collected more batteries than anywhere else. And I think because it's attracting, the environment, I think this is a super great opportunity for Rotary clubs to attract younger people, because they're really interested in this. And a lot of times they see Rotary as a stuffy old businessman's club. And that's not the face of Rotary we want to project anymore.
That is true. That is totally on point in terms of engaging the youth.
Clari, thanks so much for joining our podcast. It was very intriguing to hear.
Great. And I'll look forward to joining on the 29th.
Perfect. I'll send you the details. I want to hook you up. I want to link you up. I'm passionate about it. I want to be part of the campaign. I've been part of the campaign. So any way we can be able to scale it, because my idea and my dream is that if also the zone institutes can be able to incorporate the same in terms of, because we have a number of regional zone institutes that is the Rotary Zone Institutes. I think there'll also be a great avenue in advancing the skill sets that are required, especially when it comes to recycling. And this is one of the areas that need to be focused on.
Well, so ESRAG has a presence this week in zone 26, 27, and I'm in touch with the directors covering a number of the other zones. I spoke to one the other day, and his aide is setting up a call. So, I'm trying to go to the highest levels I can, also going from the bottom up. So hopefully awareness on all those levels will certainly help.
Definitely. And just the last one, if you don't mind at all, what future landscape, or what do you envision to be the future landscape when it comes to the recycling aspects?
I think people try to bite off more than they can chew. And my goal is to focus. If I can make recycling lithium-ion batteries the polio campaign of environmental area, then that would be my goal. And then from that, I think we'd have a positive influence on influencing all other kinds of recycling.
Perfect. Count on my support. Count on me. I'll be right behind you, making sure that everything goes as it needs to be. So thank you for your time. I do appreciate it. And back to you, Admiral.
Thanks so much, Clari Nolet, for joining us on an intriguing conversation about lithium batteries and her projects. Have a nice day, Clari.
Thank you too. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, that was information loaded guest, I would say. So much to think about. And I like that you're going to also collaborate with her in the future, Felix.
I'm excited about what she's doing. She's only 2 years into it, but the much she's been able to achieve is quite commendable. It all boils down that a solution is never too small, and that once you see something needs to be done, just start it, begin it. For her, she's more action oriented, and I think that's why she's been able to achieve much in a short time. And this has to do with lithium. As soon as she saw there was a need for lithium to be addressed, she jumped into it. She rolled her sleeves up, brought in a few people who had the same mindset, and the ball kept rolling, and now it's bigger and getting bigger and getting bigger. So it's quite encouraging what she said. And also, I'm looking forward to seeing what she can be able to also kind of support on the African continent. I know right now the focus is the US and also Australia and also India, but also considering that in Africa, almost every house also has about three, or rather every person has about three mobiles they use in a year. It's going to be of interest. It's going to be of interest to see how we can be able to collaborate on that aspect. So November 29 is when we have the third annual Africa Electronic and Electrical Waste Management Conference. And it's going to be great to be able to also have us speak at the session. So I look forward to that moment.
Yeah, I'm quite excited that you can do that with her. If you want to know more about Clari Nolet and what she's doing, we will post the links in the show notes. Then you can click on it and find more about it if you want to be also involved. And if you're also based in the United States, a Rotarian, and you want to connect with Clari, we'll leave the information in the show notes. Now, I think it's time to move on to our ending of today. And as per usual, we try to kind of leave on a more positive note, talk about any fun things we've seen or interesting animals or something like this. So, Felix, what have you seen or read or experienced lately that is funny?
On my end, with Monday coming up, that is pretty much a public holiday for people to plant trees. It was kind of intriguing when I met a young lady called Eliano Njiko Klister. Right now she's about 13 years old, but so far she's been able to plant 1.3 million trees. That is 1.3 million trees. How does a 13-year-old achieve 1.3 million trees? So you can never be too young to come up with a solution. You can never be too young to be part of a bigger solution. So I found that to be intriguing and quite interesting.
Do you meet often interesting people like this?
For some reason, I always bump into them, maybe an introduction here and there. And she's going to be part of COP28. Right now, she's the youngest Paul Harris fellow. She became a Paul Harris, I think, when she was about either 10 years old. It was intriguing for me that such a young girl could be able to achieve so much just because she was focused on it. How much more can a country do? How much more can a government do? How much more can we all as adults be able to achieve if only we can set our minds into it?
Exactly. I think it will be nice if we have more people like this. Something interesting that I read is, I don't know if that happened recently, but there has been a dog rescue of a cat that's been missing for 6 days. So a cat fell into 30-meter deep mine shaft, and the dog has found her. The dog has led people to find the cat. I think it's kind of inspiring that even animals take care of each other.
Exactly. I mean, we are used to seeing a cat being chased by a dog, and this time around, it's a dog saving a cat. What a twist. What a twist, my friend. Wow. Things can really turn around.
Exactly. In down the mine shaft, and you have a dog just randomly going to save a cat. I think that's
Wow.
let's say positive story to end today.
Definitely it is. It's a lesson that we all can be able to be a blessing, or we all can be able to be the source of good for another. It's just an issue of being willing.
On that note, I would like to end our podcast today. Thanks so much for joining Clari Nolet. If you want to hear or find out more about what Clari Nolet is doing for the lithium projects in the United States, you can find more information in the show notes. I'd like to thank also you, Felix, for joining us today. Thanks so much.
It's been an honor, and I look forward to the next session. And I'm sure you've all been inspired, you've all been intrigued, you've all found something positive that can pretty much take you till the next recording. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the courtesy of it. Always a joy to spend the night with you.
And as per usual, we'd like to thank ESRAG for helping setting up this podcast, and especially Larry Zuckerman. My name is Admiral, and I thank you for listening to this podcast. And we hope that you also will be with us at the next episode. I don't know who's the guest yet, but I'm sure it will be someone interesting. Thanks so much for joining. And every little bit helps to help environmental fight to become more sustainable. So I wish you well and speak to you next time.
Cheers.